I noticed it on a Tuesday. I know it was Tuesday because I'd just gotten back from my shift at the hospital, overnight, 12 hours. The kind of shift that leaves your eyes feeling like sandpaper and your thoughts moving through water. I came through the front door, dropped my bag, and stood at the living room window the way I always do. It's a habit. I don't even think about it anymore. I just stand there for a minute. Look out at Derringer Street. Let the stillness of early morning remind me that I'm home. The house across the street, 14 Derringer, has been empty since March. Before that, a retired couple lived there. The Abelards, quiet people. He had a vegetable garden along the left side of the house, and she had wind chimes on the porch that drove me insane every time the weather shifted. They moved to be closer to their daughter in Tucson or Phoenix, one of those. I never asked exactly. I just waved one afternoon and their car was gone and the house went still. Anyway, Tuesday morning, pale light, 6:15 a.m., I looked out at 14 Derringer. And that's when I saw them. Curtains in the front window, the wide bay window on the ground floor, the one that faces directly across at mine, cream fabric, thin vertical stripes in dusty blue, spaced about 4 inches apart, a small gathered ruffle along the top edge. My curtains. I know how that sounds. I know curtains aren't unique. They come off a factory line by the thousands. But I bought mine at an estate sale 7 years ago, from a woman in Stowe who was clearing out her mother's house. The fabric is old. The blue has faded unevenly, darker at the outer edges, lighter in the center panels, in a way that mass production doesn't do. The ruffle along the top sits slightly irregular, 3 inches on the left side and closer to 2 on the right, because whoever hemmed them originally wasn't entirely precise, and the curtains in 14 Derringer's bay window had that same uneven ruffle. I could see it from across the street. The same fade, the same imprecision. I stood there until my neck ached. Then I went to bed, because I'd worked a 12-hour overnight, and I told myself, "You're tired, you're seeing things. You looked at your own reflection in a dark window and got confused. Sleep." I slept. I woke up at 2 in the afternoon and went straight to the living room. My curtains were hanging in my window exactly where they'd always been. I touched the fabric. Cream, faintly dusty, the ruffle uneven, left side 3 inches, right side 2. I laughed out loud alone in my living room. The kind of laugh you produce specifically to fill a silence that's making you uncomfortable. Then I looked across the street. 14 Derringer's bay window had curtains too. Still there. Still the same pattern, same fade, same irregularity. I stood very close to my own window and tried to find some difference. Some variation that would let me conclude these were simply similar curtains, mass-produced. Coincidence, I couldn't find one. I went and made coffee and told myself to stop. The next thing I did, and I want to be honest about this, even though it sounds strange, the next thing I did was count my curtains, every window in my house. I went room by room. Living room, 2 panels, kitchen, 1 tier, upstairs hallway, the small square window above the landing, 1 panel. My bedroom, 2 panels. The spare room I use for storage, 1 panel pushed all the way to the left, because there's a wardrobe partly blocking that window. All present, all correct. And across the street, 14 Derringer had curtains only in the bay window. Just those 2 panels. I made a note of this in my phone. I don't know why. It felt important to write it down before I started second-guessing myself. 14 Derringer bay window. Curtains matching mine, Tuesday, 6:15 a.m. All my curtains accounted for. I added the time and date and locked my phone and went back to work that evening. The week that followed was quiet. Normal even. I worked 3 more overnight shifts. I came home at the usual time, stood at the window, looked at 14 Derringer. The curtains were always there. I stopped feeling unsettled by them and started feeling something different, almost resigned. Okay, there are curtains across the street that look like mine. This is a thing that exists in my life now. I Googled the curtain pattern, which I should have done immediately and somehow didn't. I found nothing. The fabric was old enough that whatever company produced it either no longer existed or had no digital record I could locate. One forum post from 2009 mentioned a similar pattern, cream with blue stripes, sold through a regional textile company in Ohio that closed sometime in the late 1980s. That was as close as I got. I tried to think of when I'd last had anyone over. Anyone who might have admired the curtains, asked about them, taken a photograph. It had been a while. I work nights. My social life has a way of compressing over time without my noticing. My sister visited in January. My friend Paulette came for coffee in February, maybe March. I couldn't imagine either of them caring about my curtains. I drove past 14 Derringer on Thursday, slowly with my window down. The house looked fully vacant. No furniture visible through the gap in the curtains, no vehicles in the driveway, no mail accumulating at the door. The curtains just hung there in the bay window, still. I didn't stop. I don't know why I didn't stop. Monday came. I had 2 days off in a row, which is rare enough that I'd planned to do something useful with them. Groceries, laundry, the gutters along the back of the house that I'd been ignoring since September. I woke up at 7:30, lay there for a minute, listening to the street. Then I got up and went downstairs to make coffee. I walked through the living room. My curtains were gone, not pulled back, not fallen from the rod. The rod was still mounted above the window, both brackets, the center support. The rings were on the rod, but the fabric panels were not on the rings. They were just absent. 2 cream and blue panels exactly the size of my window not present. I stood very still. I turned and looked through the bare window at 14 Derringer. The bay window across the street now had 4 panels. 2 of them were the original pair I'd seen on Tuesday, and beside them, hung on the same rod, continuous, as though the bay window had always had 4 panels, were 2 more. The same fabric, the same irregular fade, the same uneven ruffle, 3 inches on the left, 2 on the right. My panels, the panels that had been hanging in my window when I went to bed the night before. I need you to understand that I checked the window, I checked the locks. Every window in that house was locked from the inside, because I lock them every night without fail. It's a hospital habit. You become excessively systematic about security when you work nights and sleep days, and you're always aware that you are a woman alone in a house. I lock everything. I checked the locks Sunday night. I went to bed. I woke up, and my curtains were across the street. I called the non-emergency police line. I explained, as calmly as I could manage, that I believed someone had entered my home and removed property. The officer I spoke with was patient in a way that told me he thought I was having some kind of episode. He asked if there were signs of forced entry. No. He asked if I'd had anyone staying with me who might have moved items. No. He said he'd send a car to do a walk-around. 2 officers came. They were polite. They saw the empty rod. They saw the curtains across the street. They went and knocked on the door of 14 Derringer. No answer. They looked through the front window, confirmed no one appeared to be inside. They told me the curtains looked similar to mine, but they couldn't confirm they were the same item. They suggested I contact the property management company handling the vacant listing and file a report with them. They left. I watched them go. Then I stood at my bare window for a very long time, looking at 4 panels that used to be 2 in a house where no one lived. I found the property management company through the county auditor's website, Midland Realty, out of Akron. I called Tuesday morning. I explained the situation, the matching curtains appearing in the vacant property, then my curtains going missing, the police visit. The woman I spoke to was quiet for longer than felt normal. Then she said, "Are you the current occupant of 11 Derringer?" I said yes. She said, "We've received 2 prior complaints from that address." I asked what kind of complaints. She said the previous tenant. Not me. I've been here 6 years. I bought the house. The previous occupant in the early 2000s had filed complaints about 14 Derringer on 2 separate occasions. She wouldn't tell me the nature of the complaints, she said. The files were old and she was reading from a summary note, not original documentation. She said someone would follow up. No one followed up. I bought new curtains, plain white, blackout lining, because I sleep days and I needed to do something practical. I hung them on Wednesday. Thursday morning I came home from my shift and looked across the street. 14 Derringer's bay window now had 6 panels, the 2 original ones, my 2 cream and blue panels from the living room, and 2 more plain white blackout lining. I didn't call the police again. I stood at my window, which was bare again, and I looked at that house for a long time. Then I got my phone and pulled up the note I'd started. I added to it, white blackout curtains gone. 14 Derringer now has 6 panels. My original 2 visible on left side of their rod. I looked at the pattern of what I'd written, and I noticed something. Every time I added curtains, the house across the street added the same number. It didn't take them, not all at once. It matched. Whatever I put up, it mirrored. Whatever went up on my window appeared on theirs, and then mine disappeared. I thought about the previous tenant, the 2 complaints. I thought about the Abelards, the couple who'd lived in that house for 12 years, and then abruptly moved away to be closer to their daughter, who I'd never actually spoken to at length, who I realized, standing there, I had no way to contact. I thought about the fact that 14 Derringer's windows face directly into mine, and have always faced directly into mine, and that I have worked nights for 4 years and slept days in this house, with whatever light filters through whatever fabric I hang up, and I had never once thought carefully about what that meant. What it would mean if something in that house needed to see in. What it would mean if curtains were not the thing being collected. If curtains were just the method. I am writing this from the spare room. I've moved my bed in here. It faces the back of the house, away from Derringer Street. I've covered the window with a sheet of black construction paper taped directly to the glass. No fabric. Nothing that hangs. Nothing that can be mirrored. The living room window is bare. I've left it bare on purpose, because I want to see if anything appears in 14 Derringer's bay window without a corresponding loss from mine. If the mirroring is the mechanism, if something over there is taking what faces it, then a bare window should give it nothing to work with. 3 days now. 14 Derringer still has 6 panels. Nothing new has appeared. I want to tell you that this is reassuring. I want to tell you I've reached some equilibrium, but this morning before I left for my shift, I stopped in the hallway at the top of the stairs. There's a small square window there above the landing. I hung 1 panel in it years ago, pushed to the side because of the wardrobe below. I stood in the hallway and I looked at that window. The panel was still there, cream fabric, dusty blue stripes, the ruffle uneven. But I was almost certain, I am almost certain that it used to be pushed to the left, wardrobe side, because the wardrobe is on the left and the panel was covering the wardrobe rather than the window. This morning it was pushed to the right. I don't know when that happened. I don't know if I moved it and forgot. I work nights. My memory during the day is unreliable. I know that about myself, but I stood there looking at it for a long time, and I realized that window faces north, not toward Derringer Street, not toward 14 Derringer, somewhere else entirely, and I haven't figured out what that means yet. I'm not sure I want to. The panel is still there. I've left it, because taking it down feels like acknowledging something I'm not ready to name, but I check it every morning now, and every morning I try to remember exactly where it was the morning before.